All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as part of the Rankin Technical College EWD 1000 Web Development Technologies course, I've been creating a series of video presentations based on the Mozilla Developer Network Learn Web Development series. And I'm in the JavaScript portion, and we're talking client-side web APIs. I've gone through the first 4 steps here of using an XML HTTP request, also known as an XHR example. So we downloaded the files. Inside of our script, we created a couple constants where we were going to refer to our select, which was our download here, that was going to say what verse we wanted, verse 1, 2, 3, or 4, and pre, which is kind of the area where we're going to put all this information. All right. And then we also created an onChange for this, which is going to call update display, which we started in here. And right now, we want to be able to convert the verse 1 to verse1.text, and there's a space here, and this is capital letters, etc. So we made these changes. All right. Next, we went in, and as it says, to begin our XHR request, we need to create a new XHR request object, and that's where we left off. So I'm going to pick it up from right here. So next, we need to use the open method to specify what HTTP request method we want to use. We're going to use get here. We're not going to change any of the information, so get will work just fine. Next, we'll need to set the type of response that we're going to expect to receive. That is defined by the request response type, and it's text because these are just simple TXT files. All right. Technically, it isn't necessary because you get text back by default, but it still is a good idea, and it's a good practice to get used to doing this. All right, fetching a resource from a network is an asynchronous operation, meaning that you have to wait for that operation to complete before you can do anything with the response. Otherwise, you'll get an error. XHR allows you to handle this using its onload event handler. It's run when the load event fires. All right, when the response has returned. When this has occurred, the response data will be available in the response property of the XHR request object. Add the following below your last addition, right here. It says you'll see that inside the onload event handler, we're setting the text context of the poem display, all right, to the value of the request response property. The above is all set up for the XHR request. It won't actually run until we tell it to, which is done using the send method. Adding the following below your previous addition to complete the function. This line should rest just above the curly brace. Well, that doesn't look good, so let's see. Probably we want that right here. There we go. All right. One problem with the example as it stands is that it won't show any of the poem when it first loads. To fix this, add the following 2 lines at the bottom of your code just above the ending script tag to load verse 1 by default, and make sure the script element always shows the correct value. Modern browsers will not run XHR requests if you just run them from a local file. This is due to security restrictions. To get around this, we need to test the example by running it through a local web server. All right, it says to find out how to do this, read how do you set up a local testing server. And there are different ways that you can do this. All right. So in other words, I think what this is saying here is we've got everything we need now, and we're going to save. Whoops. We're going to save this, but I think when we run it, nothing is going to happen. And as you can see, nothing is getting put in there, etc. All right. So let's go back and look at this. How do you set up a local testing server? Running a simple server, and they have you create a Python server. I don't really want to do that. And they talk about running Nodejs, which I don't know if I have that on this system or not, because I had it on my old system, but I'm not sure if it's on here or not. Easy way to tell. Right mouse click on here. Right mouse click on here. Choose Git Bash here. And let's see if this works. So I'm going to type in node. I don't think this is going to work. Yeah, it doesn't like that. So let's see. Well, let's see what they say here. Let's go on. All right. Trying to figure out the best way to do this. And I've got XAMPP here. I might be able to do this through XAMPP. I don't have permission to use this resource. Not found, of course. Yeah. All right, I'm just going to go on and try doing it through the fetch way and see if we can do this. So let's see. Load the example through your browser, running it through a web server. Okay. Oh, my goodness. All right, just so you know, this is what I attempted to do. and that is I went and created a new folder that I called XHR, and in there I put in my file, which I renamed to index.html. I added a server.html file. Why? So that I was able to communicate with a server. And in here, this is some stuff that we do for Node, so I'm not going to go through it right now. But it's a good news and a bad news. The good news is after I put all of this stuff in and I attempted to go up and run it, so let's get rid of this. We don't need that anymore. By just basically saying node server.js to run the file, all right, I was able to sort of run the file. Notice that I can go in there and I can change this, but it should be giving me this information in here. And it's not, and I'm not sure why. It could be a pathing problem. It could be something else. But the idea behind this particular program is when it first loaded, it should say verse 1 like it does right here. And verse 1 should appear in here. Then when I change it, verse 2 should appear in here, and I change it again, and verse 3 should appear in here, and I change it again, and verse 4 should appear in here. Now, as you can see, that part is not working, and I'm trying to figure out what I did wrong. And I didn't see anything in here. I believe I put everything that they said to put in from the article here. So I'm going to go back and quickly check that. So taking that from the top, we've got our start file, which I renamed index.html. We've got the verse 1.txt, the verse 2.txt, the verse 3.txt, and the verse 4.txt. So let's check things that would just make sense. Verse 1, verse 2, verse 3, those look like they're spelled just fine. All right, and there's our index, and there's our server file, so that all should be okay. So I want to double check and make sure I didn't leave anything out in the HTML that I put in here in this index.html file. So it was just a lot of copying. So select, pray, that looks good. First choose .change function. Update display. Pass it in the verse. Verse equal verse dot replace. That'll get rid of that blank space. That'll make the V lowercase, and that'll add the .txt onto the end of it. So I don't see anything that looks wrong there. We're asking for a new XML HTTP request here. I don't see anything wrong there. Opening it, getting the URL, that's where the problem may be. It may not be finding the correct URL. I don't know why it wouldn't be, though. Response type is text. In the onload, I know that that's working in that. It is setting that equal to 1 here. This request.send may be being put in the wrong area. So let me double check that. This line should be just above the closing curly brace of your update display, and that's where it is. Or is it? No, it's not. So this send, hopefully this is going to fix the problem that we had. That should be at the end of this. So let's see if indeed that fixed the problem. All right, so I'm going to, again, this is a Node.js thing, so don't worry about it, but I'm going to have to stop this and start it again. And don't worry about that. That's not a big thing. So node server.js, and I should be able to come back to here. And where we had this, let's refresh it. It still is not showing the text in here. Doggone it. One problem with the example as it stands is it won't show the poem when it first loads. Yeah. Add the following at the bottom just below the closing script tag. All right. Which I think I did at the bottom just below. Yep, there it is. That's been saved. And we wanted the request send. This should rest just above the closing curly brace of your update display. And that's where it is. So that should be sending the request. It's not working though. All right, let's see if we can get it to work with a fetch. So I'm going to go and create another folder called fetch. All right. Well, one thing, let's see once. Could I possibly be running the wrong path to this? That's possible. Localhost 3000 slash how about desktop slash XHR. Oh, it's still finding verse 1, but it's not loading that. Doggone it. Well, index should be loading that by default. And yeah, it's still not finding it though. All right, let's try the other one. So I'm already getting up here, I'm sure, in my timing. Yep, 17 minutes. So I'm going to try to do this again. And I'm going to try to do it again with a fetch. Be right back.